Welcome to Talk is Sheep, the official podcast of the Wild Sheep Society of British Columbia. Brought to you by our title sponsor, Mountain Tough Fitness Lab. Come along with us as we take conversations that matter to you into the high alpine. We have partnered with Mountain Tough Fitness Lab to help get you in shape and mentally stronger. Whether you're a veteran hunter or just starting out, the Mountain Tough app will take you to the next level. We personally train using the Mountain Tough programs, and we believe in it so much that we want to give you 6 weeks for free using code SHEEPBC. That's SHEEPBC. Check out Mountain Tough Fitness Lab. You won't be disappointed. This episode is sponsored by our conservation partner, Yeti. Thank you, Sitka Gear and Yeti, for investing in healthy wildlife and sustainable ecosystems. Well, Kris, great to see you, buddy. It's we've been trying to line this up for a while, and I know you've been lying low, trying to hide under the radar. And but honestly, dude, you're an important part of our team. You're such an amazing guy, and you're great. You're great at articulating things. So I'm really excited to have you on the podcast. Welcome.
Oh, thanks a lot, Kyle. It's obviously, yeah, I've listened to a lot of Talk of Sheep over the last little while, and it's great to be here. And besides, Greg said you were going to give me a whiskey if I came on.
Oh my goodness, people actually listen to some of the crap we blither there from time to time. Hey, that's awesome. That's funny.
All right, I'm not particular. You can choose the whiskey.
Fantastic. Okay, so Kris, I think a lot of people in our sheep world know who you are, but there's some people that are newer to the world of Wild Sheep BC and maybe don't. So you've got actually a long history, certainly a lot longer than I do, with the society and your involvement, and you're a sheep hunter from, you're still young. I look at you and I look at guys like you and Barker and Southern, and I see young guys, right? And like, you're doing this for 20 or 30 years, so you're not as young as we think you are. So let's talk a little bit about how you got involved with the society in the first place. And because I know you go way back to the early days of the board. So.
Yeah, it's been quite a ride, and it's been really cool to see the Sheep Society grow to where it is today. Yeah, I got interested probably in sheep hunting really early, in kind of the early 90s. And much like Bill Pastoric, I got to know Bill in the early 90s. There was a connection from the early Sheep Society days up around that Lillooet area, and I used to hunt deer up there. And I think I rolled through Lillooet one time, and they had a poster up or a business card about the Wild Sheep Society, and I reached out to them. And yeah, I was involved right from, I think, late 1993 kind of on with the Sheep Society, and got kind of linked in with Bill Pastoric there in those early years, and then started helping him out. The newsletter was just a few stapled together sheets of paper back then. And yeah, kind of rolled from there.
It's very cool. It's funny on the newsletter front. So we've got all the old newsletters from time immemorial. So I think Colin Peters, one of our directors and our secretary, he's got all those documents. So we're going to try and we're going to create a digital copy of them, I guess, if you will, and kind of have an archive. And then we'll probably, I think what we might do is start incorporating some of those old articles in the magazine just for fun, because I think there's a bit of a nostalgia there.
There really is. Yeah, I've actually kept a lot, like almost all of them from those early years. And I was kind of leafing through them yesterday, and what a trip down memory lane. And the early years of the Sheep Society from Lillooet and Williams Lake there, where it was literally just a Elks Hall with couple dozen enthusiastic sheep hunters, and where it's grown from then until now. It's fantastic. It's just unbelievable. And I've still got friendships from those early years, obviously Bill and Mike Southern and there as well. And it was a real tight-knit community, much like it still is, and which is really cool, right? The social group you get from the organization is awesome.
I think it's really inspiring. Like, I look at a guy like yourself, a guy like Mike, a guy like Chris, and I'm a newbie to this, like not as new as some people, but I look at what you guys do. I look at what Bill's done, David, and you guys are still involved. Like, it's one thing to be involved with an organization and just kind of, you maybe a founding member and maybe you still support, but like, oh my goodness, there's a lot of people that have been around right from the get-go, that are really involved. Like they're like not just like, oh, just doing a little bit here and there, like really, really active.
Yeah, I think it speaks to the nature of sheep hunters and mountain hunters. You get pretty passionate about the outdoors and about wild places and about wild things. And when you get like-minded people in the same room that are passionate about those things, I mean, it's kind of amazing of what can get done and the enthusiasm that's there for wildlife and conservation. And, like I say, years later here, I'm still friends with all these guys and it's kind of been great to reconnect with them even on another level, more recently. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun. And I was fortunate back in the day. Like I got a ram pretty early in my kind of hunting time, and that really just rocketed me. And then of course I got sheep fever, Kyle, and sheep fever is crazy once you get it. It can take over your life a little bit.
Well, I kind of think that's one of the cool things that we do, and I talked a little bit about this previously, is the conservation game keeps you involved in that, right? So you can only sheep hunt for whatever, most people go a week or 2 weeks, or maybe some people are really dedicated and can pull a month off, or, guides obviously get more time and that sort of thing. But for me, it's like I love everything about it. I like the gear. I like the environment. I love the people. I love the like testing yourself. And it kind of like with what we're doing and like and our directors and volunteers, it kind of makes it a year-round thing, and it just kind of keeps giving really. And I don't know, I find it super, super rewarding personally.
Yeah, you know what is cool too is like there's obviously different generations, and I'm getting up there in age a little bit now, and I like looking at the younger guys like the Matt McCabe's and Peter Gucci there, and those guys they remind me of how I was back when in my 20s and 30s, and that enthusiasm. It's great watching those guys, and they're really driven. And I think for guys like us that have been around a little bit, I think it's pretty inspiring just to kind of stay close to those guys and see how they're doing, and it just keeps you fired up.
Yeah, it's awesome. So you got involved and you were on the board and I know your professional career, that took you got really involved in it. That's always the case too, right? You get somebody that's really capable, really good, and then everyone figures it out. Like, holy crap, this guy's got his act together. So he gets promoted at work or she gets promoted at work, and then it takes you away. So I know you kind of were stepped back, and for the first few years, I'd known your name a lot through Mike and stuff, but you were really, really involved. You were on the board, you were on the executive team. Talk a little bit about that involvement in the early days.
Yeah, the early days were fun. I met Bill Historic there really early in the 90s there, and Bill was really active and got active right away and jumped in to help out on the newsletter. And he kind of said, "Hey, are you interested in getting more involved?" And I go, "Yeah, I'll help you, Bill." And very early in those mid 90s, the first step was kind of trying to get the newsletter going, which Bill did a phenomenal job of getting that up and running. And we needed a little bit more advertising in there. So Bill kind of got me hooked up with trying to get some sponsors and some advertisers in those early editions of the newsletter. And and there was, it's interesting. There's some businesses that jumped in there really early, like Italian Sporting Goods has been on board very early, and put an ad in that newsletter, and that kind of got me involved with Bill. And we would meet, at his place for the board meetings. And, there was no Zoom back then. We had just a telephone with a speaker, and we'd have these group calls, and, all these sheep hunters would meet at Bill's place in Coquitlam, and we'd spend more time BSing about sheep hunting, but we did get some sheep business done there, and we'd be connecting with guys, it seems funny now because it's the norm, but back then, we were on these conference calls with guys just like we are now, but from all over the province, and it's really cool time.
Yeah, it is cool. And it's funny. I look back on a lot of the issues. Like I'll go back and look at some minutes from earlier days. And it's like a lot of the stuff we're doing now, it's the same sort of crap that you guys were dealing with back then. And of course, like there's the fundraiser side of it, but some of these issues with wildlife and, it's so funny that the minutes that were written 20 years ago or 15 years ago, some of that stuff could be just rewritten today and redated. It's really funny to see it. So
It's a sad, yeah, I mean, it's a sad thing that history repeats itself, right? in
Yeah.
a lot of ways. A lot of these issues that we're dealing with now, like you say, we were dealing with them back then, and they're alive and well today. But yeah, so Bill got me involved in those early years, and then he eventually became president, and then I think I was a secretary, and then towards the end, the treasurer for a good 5 year run there. And we were really increasing our relationship. We had a great relationship with the Sheep Foundation right from the beginning. Back then, it was FNAS, and we were getting that relationship established. And I remember in it was 97 or 98, we did our first booth down in Reno. And
Hmm.
that was pretty exciting times for us too, going down there and I think I drove down with another member down with the booth in the back of the pickup truck, and getting exposed to that show down, Sheep Week down there. And yeah, it was a lot of fun in those days.
Yeah, very cool. So when was the last, like I know you went to Sheep Week last year, but when was the last time you'd gone prior to that?
It would have been in the 2000s. It was still FNAS, I think. When did it change over?
Yeah, it was about 15 years ago. I'm not exactly sure on the dates, but yeah, in like it was between 10 and 15 years ago in there. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and so I was like, those were the heady days. The Sheep Society was growing, and it was a lot of fun. And I think my run there on the executive and the board ran from about 95 to 2000 or something like that. And
Okay.
then I still obviously kept my fingers with what was going on with the society, but work and family started to take over there a little bit. So there's a little absence where I wasn't so active on the board.
Yeah, right on. So talk a little bit about what you seen in Reno at Sheep. Well, and maybe it wasn't in Reno, the last one you went to, because they did bounce around, but what was the difference like walking into that hall, having not seen it for 10 or 15 years?
Yeah, it was definitely its size and scope, Kyle, all the way. Like the size and the scope. And there's been so many changes, like equipment and outfitters were always there, but the size and scope of that thing now is just unbelievable. And it was big back then for me even to see it back then, but now it's just grown incredibly, and the interest in wild sheep and really international hunting has grown. And I think the biggest thing for me looking at it is the gear and stuff that's out there, you know.
Yeah, it's been a huge evolution, and we've seen changes, and we benefited without question here in BC for with the growth of the foundation and our chapter and affiliates around the network have just like they've grown significantly. It's a big difference. So, but I think a lot of that can be credited to the foundation, the great work that they're doing. But then other brands too, like like you look at Kuyu, right? Like Kuyu's been such like they've done an insane job on the marketing machine and mountain hunting and that sort of stuff too. And other brands, like don't get me wrong, I'm not saying Sitka hasn't done that too. They've just done it on a broader scale with like, you know, uh whitetail and waterfowl and stuff. But Kuyu's really elevated that mountain hunting game, right? So
Yeah, no kidding. And that highlights a real fundamental thing that I've noticed that in those intermittent, those years in between there. But those bigger corporations and their dedication to these organizations and conservation, and that commitment to giving back is something that you really really see now, especially with those a lot of those big, those larger companies that you just mentioned, Kyle. Like they really are, they do give back to conservation and these groups. So that part of it is really great to see, and the support for the Sheep Society, the Wild Sheep Society of BC is fantastic.
yeah, it's amazing. And then, not to mention what is happening on the landscape, with this growth. And it's interesting, and we're going to get into this in a little bit about the Mountain Hunting Expo, but people are like, why would you put an expo on? Like, what's like, why would you have people come to your show and spend money on gear and not spend it on conservation? And it's like, rising tide floats all boats. We're all benefiting, right? So, and a lot of our successes are tied to this industry about, the relationships that we've had with Sitka Gear, the relationships we've had with our conservation partners, with Precision Optics, and that's really benefited us. And so, we're all benefiting from it. And certainly these organizations are certainly giving back to us. The amount of donations and support we get from these brands is phenomenal.
Yeah, it sure is. And, it's like, I think back to the days when, you'd be looking online and you'd be looking at equipment. And, I know we'll talk about this probably later, but being able to actually, getting to the expo a little bit there, see these larger companies and smaller ones as well with their equipment and being able to touch and feel it, because that was something we couldn't do back in the day, right? Like if you were ordering something online or through a catalog or whatever, like these larger brands, you couldn't try stuff on, you didn't really know if it was going to fit. And now we've got that ability, with the expo anyway, to get that equipment and take a look at it and physically feel it and try it on.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool aspect of the expo. And that, last year was kind of the proof of concept. So we, for our longtime supporters, we had our event in Kamloops, and it was a pretty, like, we were very limited on size. We could get about 550 for guests in the room. And certainly the expo, we moved into a new hall there, and it was pretty limited. I think we could have about 13 booths. And the move to Penticton opened up a lot of doors for us. So we could do, 700 plus for the banquets. And now the expo hall, that allowed us to do, how many booths do we have last year? Was it
55, around that
yeah.
neighborhood, 55 booths. And
Yeah, and premium brands, right? And the one thing that was so I guess for our listeners, so Kris is one of our contract employees with the society. Kris is our Mountain Hunting Expo manager. He is in charge of dealing with the vendors and the whole Mountain Hunting Expo and other things too. But that's your baby, is the expo. And Kris, you did a phenomenal job in building that thing last year. We had 55 different vendors, 55 different booths there, and one of the things that we talked about and was challenging this first year was, you want to fill it up, you want to sell out, you want as many people as you can, but we're getting, people want to come there and market their, for a mining company, they wanted to sell spots on, they're trying to recruit employees, and we had leaf people, they wanted to put gutter systems in there. And we're like, well, shit, that'd be pretty good revenue, but it's like, how's that mountain hunting? We're like, that's going to be kind of hard to spin that one, right? And so we took the hard line to say, no, we're going to, and in the end, we sold out. It was the right call. But in those early days, we're like, oh shit, we don't have a lot of space sold here. And so kudos to you, Kris, and selling that thing out, because we had premium vendors there, right? And that's something that we're not used to in BC.
no, you're right. And, thanks for the credit, Kyle. But like, obviously, I think it was, you and Mike Southern and others that had that vision. And when you, first pitched the idea to me about having a dedicated mountain hunting expo, I mean, I just went, yeah, like that is what this province really seems to be missing, is a dedicated, mountain hunting slash show where people from, BC or even Western Canada can go and, take a look at these top end brands and try stuff on. And, and I just thought it was a phenomenal idea initially. And, yeah, for the first year, it was, it was a challenge, and it was interesting. We had a lot of help from our executive and our members, and you, and getting some of these sponsors online with us. But boy, in the end, it did turn out, and I was happy with the way it turned out. And I think a lot of hunters in BC and outdoors people really wanted to see a show where you could come in and see these higher end vendors that maybe you only see online all.
Well, for me, that's the big takeaway, Kris, is that our show was a mountain hunting expo. So a couple things there. It's a mountain hunting expo. It wasn't sheep hunting, right? So, if you're hunting caribou or moose or elk or bison and you're in the mountains, so this is built for mountain hunters. So, of course, we had firearms, optics. So, of course, that works for every hunter, but it was focused on mountain hunting. And the one takeaway I think that's really important is it wasn't about fishing or water. And yeah, we were actually trying to get some jet boat guides there because, of course, if you're mountain hunting, you might have a jet boat. But and we stayed true to that. We really focused on something that's going to be focused on the mountain hunting enthusiasts. So there's amazing shows across the province. There are all kinds of shows across the province. So the big ones, obviously, the BC Outdoor Show, Chilliwack, Tradex. But we wanted something very unique that was focused on the mountain hunter, and I think we did that. I think we did an amazing job.
Yeah, for sure, Kyle. And I envisioned it in my mind that if you were a brand new hunter, an experienced hunter, outdoors person who loved the mountains, you could walk into that show and literally outfit yourself for a really good mountain hunt, and to the point where you could even maybe, book a trip with somebody, or buy the backpack you need, the sleeping bag you need. If you were in the market for a new rifle or new optics, boom, you could literally outfit yourself out if you were so inclined with, some of the best products that are currently out there on the market. And I think we did that. Even to the point, we have, even food, freeze-dried food. There's still a few areas where, I'd like to, pick it up for this coming up year, and be, so it's a one-stop shop, really the one-stop shop for if you're a mountain hunter. You could go there and not only, buy a bunch of stuff, but, get some really good information from, experts in the field, because obviously we run all the seminars that go with the expo.
Yeah. Well, so let's, on the vendor side of things, the thing for me is that you show up at the show and you've got Schnee boots there. So you want to go mountain hunting. They've got their lineup of boots there. So you can try it on, you can fit it. But you know what? Maybe Schnee's not the brand. So you want to, oh, we got crispy boots there. Oh, we got Loa there. Okay. So, to get your hands on those boots and all in one spot, right? Okay. So that's cool. Then we've got the brands like Sitka Gear. We had Kifaru. We had Stone Glacier. We had Kuyu. We had Fierce Firearms. We had Gunworks. Give me an example of a show like that in Canada that you can go and check that stuff out. Anyone, I will put that lineup against any single outfitter show in Canada for that matter. Yeah, we can't compete with the likes of Sheep Show or SCI or any of those, fair. But in Canada, you're not going to find a better opportunity to come and try premium brands, try them on, not pay duty, not have to wait. And now in all fairness, they don't have their whole lineup there, so some of the stuff isn't there. That's a fair argument. But and that was one of the complaints I heard, is like, oh, we want the vendors to have more stuff there. Well, the vendors are the vendors. We can't tell the vendors what they can or can't bring. If they decide they're going to bring their optics lined up and there's not as many backpacks there or whatever, but you can try. They had a really good selection and you could try all that stuff on. Just maybe, I don't know that they had all the stuff there where you could buy things.
Well, and you're absolutely right. Like, and then from the optics side of it, I mean, if you were looking at buying, a nice set of binoculars or a spotting scope or whatever, we had the facility there where you could actually go out and, try looking at, and to the point of where, some of the guys had set up mounted sheep heads to actually look at through these optics, like out in the field behind the setup there. So yeah, phenomenal opportunity. And for a serious outdoors person who really wants to, see some really state-of-the-art gear, try it on, feel it, and even if you couldn't walk out with it there, boy, you could try it on and go, hey, I think I know I'm a size large now in this, this Kuiu jacket. So the next time a sale comes on online, I'm going to jump on and I know I can grab a size large, right? So yeah, it was really good. And, and our leadership and those people that attended that show, they really supported the vendors there too. Like, there was a lot of vendors that, did some pretty good business there. And there was a lot of happy outdoors people that were able to grab some, decent deals and high quality gear.
Yeah, so we still have a few booths available. So anyone that's interested, that maybe you have some outdoor products that you want to market, the show's, it's very affordable. It's in line with the other shows. And the one pitch that I'll make for our show is that it's really targeted to mountain hunting. So if you got a product that's mountain hunting specific and you want to get it out there, you'll be hard pressed to find a better venue than what we're offering. And then, how do I say this without getting fired? We had our membership. There's some disposable income there. Our members tend to be affluent. They're willing to spend some money. So I think from a vendor perspective, it's a great venue. And I think our big supporters, like you look at our conservation partners, they see that, right? They see our membership, how they support, and that they're spending money and that they're giving back. So, because obviously if these vendors, if they were losing money and it wasn't worth it, they wouldn't show up, right? They've got a business to run. They got to be profitable. They wouldn't show up if they were losing money. So I think it's a great venue. So I guess anyone that's a vendor that's maybe interested or wants to learn more about the show, how do they get a hold of you, Kris? What's the best way to?
Well, the easiest way, Kyle, is to just go online and click the link that we have on the Wild Sheep Society of BC website under vendors, and all of the information is there. And I completely agree. You know, we've got some room. We're expanding the show a little bit in terms of the amount of exhibitors we can take this year. I think we're going to be in that 70, table range there for the expo hall. So we do have room. It is filling up. And yeah, if you've got some really good outdoor products geared towards the mountain hunter, then we'd love to see you there.
Yeah, awesome. Now, for just, somebody that's not a vendor, they just want to come to the show or check it out. So, there's kind of two parts that's worth noting. We've always done a sort of our banquet on the Saturday night. It was in Kamloops, and we bounced it around the province before. So that model still continues. So we'll have our banquet and we'll have the full event. So, there's the whole weekend at the show. We now have a Friday night banquet, a Saturday night banquet, and the expo runs throughout the day. Saturday morning, we have our life member breakfast, and there's a whole bunch of stuff. So you talked about the Sheep Hunter University. So this is a great opportunity for an experienced hunter or for a new hunter. So I just got word Daryl Hosker is going to be doing an international sheep hunting and mentoring program for people. So if you're interested in maybe taking up international, and like you look at some people are like, oh, I want to go on a sheep hunt, and maybe tags are too expensive or they don't have the resources or don't know how to do it. Daryl's always sort of promoted like there's so much opportunity overseas, some affordable hunts. An example is you go hunt, even locally, right? If you want to go to Alberta and do an antelope hunt, I just did that. It's pretty affordable, right? Like it's when you start adding it up, and don't get me wrong, it's not free, but it's affordable. And there's some pretty cool international hunting opportunities. Yeah, if you're going to go hunt Marco Polo, which is your target hunt there, if you're going to go hunt Marco Polo with Kris in Asia, that's going to be a bit spendy. But there's some really affordable hunts in France or Spain, and they're not high fence hunts, and they're amazing opportunities for mountain game, and they're great for the family. You take your kids, take your wife, the wife's going to be happy. You go do a mouflon hunt or something like that. So Daryl's going to talk about that, for example. Anyway, my point is that we got the banquets, and we also have the expo itself. So the banquets itself are in the evenings, and you can buy the full weekend package. You get access to pretty much everything. There are a few add-ons that we do charge for. Or if you can't make the banquet, or maybe you just don't have the dough for it, you can just come and check the expo out. So we expect we will sell out the banquets. We usually do. The sales are going to happen here in the next, I think we'll open up around November 1st is usually when we go live. We'll let you know. There'll be good coverage on that for the banquets. So if you're interested in that, get your hotel and get your banquet stuff early because they'll sell out. And then we've got the expo, and of course that's during the day, and you can just pay. You can pick up a day pass. You can come check it out. Go to the Sheep Hunter University. Sheep Hunter University, that was amazing last year. We had a great lineup of guys. I think some of those seminars had over 200 people in them. Just really, really well attended.
Yeah, it's for bang for your buck. I think there's not a better deal really. And I just got to say one more thing just about our vendors. Like they're phenomenal supporters of the society. And as I get older, I now like when I'm doing a big purchase or I'm buying gear, like I'm buying from these companies and these businesses that support us, Kyle. Like it seems to be more important now than ever to have that relationship. Like if these companies are bucking up and they're supporting the Wild Sheep Society and they're coming to the expo, and my gosh, they donate it. They donate stuff for us. Like it's just incredible. And I'm supporting them. I as a consumer of hunting gear and stuff, and I'm a gear junkie. I'm supporting these businesses that are coming to support the Wild Sheep Society now. I think that's more important than ever before.
Well, that's just it, Kris. It's like, and we're seeing it sort of in our world. There's been kind of the attack on hunting and gun owners and, all the stuff that's going on that a lot of us don't like, right? We don't like that we lose hunting opportunities that then there's organizations that are fighting for that, right? We're doing it, but there's others too. And then you're like, well, how do we do it? And it's like through our membership, but it's through these brands that support our business, right? And when we get them stepping up and making a difference like that, it's paramount that we support these people. And you know what? I needed some optics. I needed a new set of I made the stupid decision to get my wife involved in hunting, which has been proving costly. I'll say that. And but I needed some optics, right? And I did not price shop. I knew what I needed. I called up Omer and I said, okay, the amount of support we've received and his commitment, and I didn't ask price. I didn't ask for anything. I just said I need what do I need? What do you suggest for what I need? He said, oh, you need the Leica so and so's. I'm like, okay, just send them to me. And he's like, okay, well, you want to know the price? I'm like, no, I don't care. I'm not looking for a deal. I just need to support you and what we're doing because we need to make sure. And I didn't even price check, and I probably paid too much. I don't know. Omer's always competitive on his pricing anyway, but it didn't matter to me, right? Because we need to support those brands, and I know that our membership does that, and it's important that we keep doing that because those are the people that we get the product, we can move the product, we need that industry support because without them, if we have to go out and buy everything at cost and then we try and it really diminishes our ability to fundraise, right? So absolutely, man, I 100% agree with you.
Yeah, it's a circular relationship, and they give and we give back to them, and it's pretty well. I just booked with Bosveld Jacob Safaris for a trip to Africa, next summer, and they've been great supporters too of us over the years here, and yeah, I do think our membership supports these vendors, and like I say, two-way street.
Yeah, and I've dropped a few names here, and I apologize to those donors and vendors that we don't recognize. But the list is long, and if you're ever kind of, and for me, it's like, okay, if you got a piece of gear that you need, okay, I get it. Like, okay, I want a specific piece of, I like this pack. I'm like, yeah, go buy it. But if you're not sure, like, and the thing is too is we partner with premium brands. We're not signed up, and no disrespect, but we're not working with the sort of entry level brands in the industry. That all of our supporters, they're premium brands, and they go a long way in supporting what we do. So yeah, awesome. Just phenomenal the amount of support we get, and just it's incredible that what our vendors and our donors and supporters have done, and then of course our membership, right? So.
Yeah, I'm excited about, coming up. I think this next show will hopefully we'll be able to take it step up to the next level, and we'll go from there. It's fun.
Awesome. Okay, so gonna switch here. Just anything else on the expo side of things or on the show side of things we need to talk about before we move on?
No, I think we covered it, Kyle. Looks
Okay,
good.
awesome. Okay, well, just again, so grateful for all your leadership on what you're doing there, Kris, and just yeah, you came on the team there, and we did the whole interview stuff, and Sheldon's like, "Don't even interview anyone, just hire Kris," and I'm like, "Well, yeah," and he's like, and literally like 2 minutes into the interview, we're like, "Okay, the recruitment process is done here. You're hired." Well, we didn't do it like that, but you get my point. So anyway, we're super grateful for your leadership,
Yeah.
and you do such a great job, Kris, and this is bodes, you know, you did this professionally. You were in a management role, a leadership role, and you brought that to society, and it's amazing. So thank you.
No, it's been a lot of fun, Kyle. And like I say, I think that sheep fever, it kind of stopped for a little while. It's always there. I think, what is it, like malaria? It comes back again, right? And you just get around these younger guys and stuff, and you go, oh God, I remember the days. And then, sure enough, then you're taking your kids out and want to expose them to that. And yeah, it's
Yeah,
interesting.
so cool. You just mentioned that. So you talk about your kids and sort of that next generation, and I'm at that point too, right? My kids and my wife and stuff. So let's touch a little bit on. I know that you and Parker got out on a goat hunt this year, and has he got the sheep fever? What does it look like for your family?
Well, yeah, he's just in the last little, like, Parker's 16, and I've got two boys, and I've been taking them, dragging them along with me hunting, like, since they were very little, and they've been exposed to shooting grouse and all of that stuff. And Parker was fortunate; he got a deer a couple years back, and so he was looking at my room, and he goes, "Oh yeah, we should try hunting some of those." And I really, mountain game, and I thought, wow, I should probably take him out on a trip and get him up in the real wilderness, right? Like, and expose him to some of the stuff that I've been fortunate been able to do over the years. And so yeah, so we planned a goat hunt this last fall, and they're at the end of the summer, and it was good. It was a real experience for me to like both my boys have been exposed to hunting, but not we've done overnighters and we've done some short hikes and whatnot. And but I wanted to expose at least Parker to a good wilderness trip up north and let him see the north like I've seen it.
And that was a draw, right? You got a draw for that, or was it just
Yeah,
over the
we did
counter?
we did get a draw. We didn't get a sheep draw this year, but we did get a goat draw. And so that kind of was the start of the planning process. And it was I wanted to expose them to a trip, up north. Those trips can get a little squirrely with weather and everything else, and waiting for float planes and stuff. And so I was kind of really particular about the place we went to. I wanted to kind of fly in at high elevation right off the bat. I didn't want to try and with a kid on his first trip, kind of fly in low and then have to beat your way up through the thick stuff as we all do in the pouring rain. So I thought maybe if we can fly in at a high elevation lake, kind of set up a base camp and then spike out from there, and it might be a little bit easier, because those mountain hunts are tough. And I didn't want to kill him in his first, I didn't want him to have this terrible experience up north. And I was kind of keeping my fingers crossed that the weather was going to be good and we weren't going to spend days in a tent in the rain.
Well, it sounds like you did find that. How did the hunt go? What was the experience like for him?
Yeah, so the experience was good. And this, I'm, you know, outfitting kids and you want it to be a positive experience. And so it started kind of early. I guess, oh geez, I got to get him spooled up and get him some equipment. So we started doing some training hikes before the hunt, doing some hikes and some overnighters, but it was getting all his gear sorted out and then getting my gear sorted out. And it's interesting, you do these northern trips and usually you're going in with another buddy who's experienced and a group of guys who are experienced, so you don't have to so much worry about what your friends are bringing. You've got communal gear you're bringing and you talk about that. But when you're responsible for your charges there, and you've got to make sure they've got the headlamps and they've got the proper sleeping bag and the proper air, mattresses and gear, it becomes a completely different beast, as I found. Like it's one thing to look after yourself and get your own gear, sorted out and squared away, but it's completely another thing when you've got to get your gear and make sure your kid has got all his gear squared away because as you know, when you fly in or get dropped off up north, there's no real coming back. You gotta deal with it. So that was a big part of it was getting him all geared up and getting all the equipment, the right equipment that he needs to stay, safe and dry and everything up there. So that took a lot of preparation, and we did that throughout most of the spring and summer. And yeah, we executed a pretty decent fly-in trip up there up north, and we got dropped off at a high elevation, lake, and we spent better part of a week wandering around chasing goats. It was good. We didn't get a goat. We did see a lot. We did see a few goats, but they were in spots where we couldn't really get in within rifle range. And had we even got within range, we wouldn't have been able to actually recover them. So we didn't shoot a goat, but we had all the adventures that go with your first flying trip. Those of you probably that have done a lot of them, you'll remember your first time flying in a float plane, and I plunked Parker up in the front seat, and it was all his eyes were pretty wide throughout the whole trip. So
That's cool. So the whole Jack O'Connor quote, it's you're either a sheep hunter or you're not. So is he a goat hunter? Is he hooked, or is that the last
I,
trip he'll ever do?
no, no, he's hooked. So much so now that I've signed him up as a half curl member of the Sheep Society, and I'm dragging him along in February when we go to the expo, and he's going to be helping me out in the expo halls and doing some volunteering up there. And he's looking forward to that. So, yeah, it was a really good experience. When you're mentoring somebody, you want it to be positive. You don't want the first experience to be negative. And we had a great time. And as a father and hiking around the mountains with your son, it was just fantastic. Like, there's no electronics out there, and we're just glassing for goats and grizzly bears. We had a good close encounter with a grizzly, and I had warned him about that. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh, we got to be careful here because I get my kid scratched up by a bear, my wife is not going to be very happy.
Yeah, yeah, that would definitely be the case. Tell us about that grizzly bear encounter. What happened there? I know I've heard the story. I want to hear it again.
Yeah, we had been glassing, and we've been working our way down this valley, and we'd seen some goats, and we were kind of working our way down the valley to get a better view of them. And we had the wind hard in our face, and I had said to Parker, I said, we're in a grizzly area here. We're definitely going to see bears, and I said, if we see a bear, don't panic. I said, I want you to get your rifle ready and loaded right away, and and I'll grab the pepper spray, and between us, we'll see where it's going to go. And so we were hiking down this valley, and we had just glassed for about 15, 20 minutes, and we got up and we moving again. We had the wind hard in our face. And I'm like, wow, we're gonna, there's no way if there's any bears down this valley, they're not gonna smell us before we get there. So sure enough, I came over a rise, and there was a grizzly, like, just eating berries about 20 yards in front of us. And
Ooh,
I turned to Parker and I said, grizzly. And he right away, like, we use that Kafaru gun bearer, and he had the Kafaru gun bearer on. And interestingly enough, I kind of, in all my haste to get him sorted out, I had actually forgot my Kafaru gun bearer, and I'd taken it off for a training hike, and I forgot to put it on. Which, for those who don't know, it's the Kafaru gun bearer is really good. If you like that system where you've got your rifle and you just pull on a release tab, and you can actually shoulder it really quick. And Parker had his going, and I had forgot mine. So I had my pack or my rifle kind of strapped to my pack in kind of a crappy way, which I don't usually do. But right away I said, Parker, grizzly. He goes, okay, I'm going hot. And he popped off his rifle and got it ready and got it shouldered and got it round chambered. And I kind of fumbled around to get the pepper spray out. And I looked back at the bear, and he stood up and looked at us in that preeminent grizzly fashion that they do, where they stand up and they're
ooh.
trying to get a look at what's made the noise. And fortunately for us, he just jumped down and ran the other direction at 100 miles an hour. And we were left with the memory of the grizzly bear and our grizzly encounter, and it was all worked out good for the bear and worked out good for us.
That's so cool. And to see that maturity in your son, right? Like Parker's 16, right?
Yeah, I asked him. I said, "Hey, how many other kids in your class have probably seen a grizzly bear at 20 yards in the wild?" He goes, "Oh, I can guarantee you, Dad, there's none in my school."
Yeah,
And
and then to
yeah,
have the maturity to do the right thing with it, like to right away, like I'm going hot, like this. It'd be one thing. It's one thing to get the gun out, right? So it's like that. That in itself is like not easy, and it's easier with the gun bearer, as you said. But then to know, like, to chamber one and tell you what he's doing and communicate and all that stuff, because that could all go real western real quick, like end up
yeah,
shooting you
yeah,
or
it
whatever.
certainly
Anything
could.
could happen.
Yeah, no, I was pretty proud of him. And we do marksmanship training when we go out in the field and stuff. And we're he kept his cool, and it was a good experience for him to experience, to go through that. And I was proud of the way he responded. And it just confirmed to me that the whole, you know, I'm pretty lucky, right? Because I now have this guy who I can take mountain hunting with me, right? Because as you know, sometimes it's hard to nail down some of your partners to organize these trips. And my mind's already whirling for the next one that we're gonna attack.
Well, it's kind of a dream that everyone has, the ability to take their kid out and be out in the field with them, or a lot of people anyway. It's certainly for me, and some of my most rewarding trips I've late have been with my kids and stuff like that. And yeah, really cool. What, just out of curiosity, what firearm, what caliber was he taking
He's
with him?
shooting a 308,
Okay, yeah.
308. Yeah.
What about you? What do you shoot?
I'm an old timer, Kyle. I remember I told you I'm from the school of Jack O'Connor. So I was a two. I packed around a 270 for like most of my hunting time, and this time I had upgraded to a 30-06. So
Okay.
I look at all these guys that are shooting 7 PRCs, and I'm good on them, and 300s and everything else. And I've shot pretty well everything I got with a 270 or a 30-06.
It
Heavy
works, eh?
bullets
Like
though.
it, yeah, yeah, yeah. 140. We're pushing 140s on this one. Eh? Yeah, that's awesome. Well, that's
Yeah.
very cool. And just back to the gun bearer. I'm just gonna like segue for a sec there. Super cool setup. Anyone that's sort of, and I don't think it has to go in a Kafaro pack. You could probably set it up on other packs. and it's just like a super cool system. I tried a few things, different ones over the years, and for that mountain hunting thing, it's not, it couldn't be better, right? Like it literally is like one action, like one movement, and you've got the gun ready in a shooting position. It couldn't be easier, quicker, and it's I guess the one exception is if you're carrying your rifle, it's a little bit quicker, but that would be the only exception. There's no other way it could be quicker. It's such a cool setup.
Yeah, it's really good too if you're using trekking poles, and we were both using trekking poles too, right? And it's just
Mhm.
yeah, it was interesting. Like I said, I had forgot mine, and I'd strapped my rifle to my pack, and you see that on some of these shows. I'm not a big fan myself of doing that, but I did it for this one, and anyway, it all worked out. And like I say, I'm already planning our next adventure. He said to me on the trip, he goes, Dad, I think I've learned more in a week up here hunting goats than I do in a whole year in school.
Yeah, it's
And I
true, right?
and I
Yeah.
thought, I thought, well, that's good for for that. I don't know if it really says much for our school system, but
Yeah, it's true. And it's funny. I was thinking about that. I'm thinking about Parker there with that grizzly bear, and like I'm going hot and like just so reactive and so on it and so smart about what he's doing. And like think about like, we have this modern day society where everything's so nice. I know you're sitting there, it looks like you're drinking a Starbucks and you go in and everyone's, but you know, I don't think we're too far from like freaking anarchy. Like walk down Pandora Street in Victoria, or go to East Hastings, and it in this modern era, it's like we're not too far away from a zombie apocalypse. And I'm not a conspiracy guy. Don't quote me on this. I don't want to. Yeah, I'm not trying to create, but if things go real sideways, and we kind of seen a touch of it in COVID. If things go real sideways, guys like Parker, they're the guys that are going to be up on the hide with their firearm, protecting his family, right? And like think of how many 16-year-old kids are doing that these days. I think it's pretty refreshing, pretty exciting.
well, I think it's important for kids to really and to test themselves like that and
Mm.
experience some of those things. And I'm in the city, and my kids are in the city. I remember my other son, he says, Dad, I think I'm the only kid in my school that hunts. And I go, really? And he goes, yeah, like I don't know of any other kids. And I go, well, that's too bad. Like that's a sad statement really on society in my mind. And it's interesting though, because Parker's friends, he a lot of those kids want to experience the outdoors. And when he tells them that he's gone on a fly-in hunting trip and seen a grizzly bear, or he's been over here and shot a deer, or went out with his dad and shot some grouse, it's amazing how many of those kids go, wow, can I go with you next time? Like, I'd really
Hmm.
like to do some of that too. And I guess they don't there's a lot of kids out there who just don't have that opportunity, right? Which is a shame.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the other thing too. And I think our society's just set up not that way, right? It's set up to, but you think of our supply chain, and you go to the grocery store, and we again, during COVID, we touched on it. Like you couldn't get any toilet paper. You were running out of food in 2 days. Like if there was really a upscale issue where, the supply chain was severely impinged, people are going to be starving in a week. They'll be all right, like full on starving. Like there's people that have 3 days worth of food in their fridge. There's 2 days worth of food on the shelves. And if we don't have that constant supply chain, we're in a lot of trouble. And to be self-reliant, and we just don't know what's coming down the pike, right? Like we just don't know. And I'm not a doomsday prepper by any stretch. And I'm not properly set up here like I should be probably. But I also feel like if I had to, I've got my garden, I've got the ability to go. And if I had to, I probably could find something to eat somewhere. It might be the neighbor's cat. I don't know, but we'd figure something out, right? So, but I think there's a lot of people that just have no concept, and there'd be a lot of, if that supply chain got disrupted, and you look at the greed, and like, again, we just touched on it with COVID, like people like buying freaking crates of toilet paper, like, and then reselling it at like 10 times the price. It's just like,
Fights in the Costco lineup for the flat of water, and yeah.
yeah, there's a lot to be said to that field to fork lifestyle and being self-reliant, and at least they can't kind of take that away from us, and we'll always have that ability to go out as long as we can find something. And yeah, it's interesting, very cool that you're able to do that with your son, and he had that experience. And so you guys have obviously you talked about safari African safari with Boswell Jacobs. Do you guys have any mountain hunts planned for 25?
No, not at this point, Kyle, because I think well, I'm booked, as I said, with Bosveld for next August.
Nice.
So I think that's going to take up a pretty premium time there, and that's the thing with hunting with kids too. You kind of got to do that in that August time frame, right? Like before they go back to school, unless you take them out of school, and we're all obviously cognizant of not doing too much of that if we can help it. But so yeah, next year August is going to be Africa for me, all of us, and that's going to be quite an experience too. And it's been a long time coming. I've got so many, like a lot of my friends have been to Africa, some of them multiple times, and I kind of waited, kind of waited until now. I needed to save up.
Yeah, well, that's just the thing, right? And you're taking the whole family too, which is going to be amazing. And um, so I'm just curious, are you setting like a budget for your kids? Like you're allowed X amount of dollars for an animal, or how are you sort of managing that aspect of it?
Well, there's definitely a budget, and yeah, I think my Parker would like to get a couple of animals, and but you got to watch the price tag on those things because those hunts can balloon pretty fast. And I think it's funny. Both my boys said, "Geez, Dad, if we go to Africa, I'd really like to get a warthog." And I go,
Ah,
"Okay,
cool.
I can swing a warthog for you guys."
Yeah. Yeah, super cool. Have you got anything that you're particularly interested in?
It's funny, Kyle. Like I'm interested in all that stuff, but the reality is I don't really have the room for a lot of that stuff if I was
Yeah.
going to, bring some of it home and display and mount stuff. And so I'm kind of cognizant of my space availability. So I'm kind of gearing my trip there more with the idea of just getting a taste of an African safari, focusing on some smaller, animals that maybe, that'll give you that experience of a safari. But what I'm saying is I'm probably not going to shoot a big kudu over there with 50 some odd inch spiraling horns going up the side. So
Yeah.
I'm still kind of working on my wish list there.
Yeah, and you're taking the whole family, your wife's going obviously, and I correct me if I'm wrong, but she's not hunting, correct?
No, no, and this trip is gear. We've got my wife has a very close friend that lives over there and has been kind of wanting us to go over and visit her for a long time, and so we've kind of wrapped this safari around a larger trip to Africa, where we'll be in South Africa and Malawi and Zambia for at least a little bit too. So we're kind of doing a lot of family kind of non-hunting safaris are going to be in there, and we're going to do that southern Cape Town area and the garden route first, and then at the end of it there'll be a hunting safari with Boswell Jacobs. So
Cool. Now, are you doing any of that stuff with booking with Rion? Because I know when Nolan and his family went over, they booked like Kruger and stuff through Rion, and they took him down there for 3 days or something.
yeah, I think my wife, she's not interested in the hunting side of it. So I think her and my older son will likely do some of those kind of shorter trips, those non-hunting trips that Rianne offers. And then Parker and I will probably spend, the majority of the time out actually kind of hunting. So yeah, we are going to probably look at some stuff with Rion for the non-hunting side of it. And there's lots of stuff to do there too, right? Like they do some, I think there's bass fishing if you want to try doing some bass fishing and some of the local stuff there. And then of course the non-hunting safaris that they offer.
Right on. How long are you guys going to be over there for?
The entire month of August. So
Awesome.
regrettably, Kyle, I won't be able to help you out at Jurassic Classic again. It
Shoot.
seems that's 2 years. That'll be 2 years in a row where I won't be able to give you a hand with that Jurassic. So,
Well, that's a great excuse, I'll tell you. An African safari is a great excuse for not being able to be there. So, yeah.
well, you've got something on your, don't you got a plan down the road for something like that?
Yeah, so Nolan had put together a bunch of us, and he's honestly, I think he's got about 25 of us, and he's trying to put a trip together for, I think we're April of 26, so we've got kind of a year and a half to save up for it and plan around it. And then of course, Rion's got all these hunts that he's going to be, he donates pretty substantially to the society. So I've got the next 2 years to buy a couple hunts to, and usually there's some you can usually get a bit of a deal there. Things do well there, but quite often things don't go quite at market value. So, it drives his hunt prices up and stuff like that too. And of course, he's a vendor at the show. And when you booked, were you dealing directly with Rion, or did you deal with?
Yes.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
exciting.
I had talked to Rian at the show and told him, hey, listen, we want to come over and do a family trip. And he goes, oh, I'll help you out there. Like, we love having families over. And yeah, I didn't buy one of the auction hunts. I just booked directly with Rian, which goes to, my point about, supporting these vendors, right? And like you did with Omer and Precision there. And I know most of our members do that,
Yeah.
support the businesses that support this society.
Well, and on the safari front, like there's just like anything else, there's good safaris and bad safaris and good outfitters and bad outfitters. And just our experience with Rion has been phenomenal, right? They're just and over the years we've had other donors, and there's been more than a few times where we just cut the check back to somebody and said, okay, there you go. And we've just eaten it because sometimes it's a great deal and there's a reason it's a bloody great deal because it's not a great
Yeah.
hunt. And don't get me wrong, there's great outfitters over there. There's not just, but Rion has proven to be time and time again. And he works with a bunch of other outfitters or other conservation orgs. I know the Midwest Wild Sheep Foundation, he donates heavily to them. He's there at Dallas Safari Club. Not sure if he's at Sheep Show. He has in the past. I'm just not sure what his status is there. But he's done a lot over the years. He's given a lot. And then his reputation in the community, like Nolan's hunted with him. Greg Rensmag, our president, he's hunted with them. His reputation in the community is just amazing. Like that, he supports the local community. I think a lot of those outfitters do, but Rayon's got a phenomenal reputation over there for the support he gives the local community.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, so I've been listening to podcasts now on Africa and everything, every podcast I can find on Africa, and I'm gonna pick Greg's brains about his trip, and I'm sure I'll talk to Nolan, when I see him next time too. And I've listened to him on Talk of Sheep and other podcasts and stuff, and it's fun. It's fun. It's an experience that I'm looking forward to. I've kind of wanted to go for a long time, so I'm really looking
Yeah.
forward to seeing the continent over there.
It's awesome. Well, I can't wait to hear all about it for sure, Chris. So we're mid-October. Any other hunt plans for the fall, or are you done?
Well, I'm going to get out again with Parker for deer probably next weekend, and then I'm going up to Haida Gwaii in November. I did that last year. Going for a few days up, well, 5 days up there. So we'll see how that goes. So yeah, there's a few things. The big one was obviously just getting out with Parker in August. What about you?
Nice. Well, I just did that antelope hunt. Melanie and I got our antelope, and then I'm actually going to fly down to South Dakota to a friend of mine, Wayne Henderson's got a outfitting concession down there, so I'm going to go down and hunt with him. He's invited me down there. So he's got upland birds, he's got pheasants and all kinds of stuff there. So I'm going to go hunt with Wayne for a couple days, and then Nolan's going to come down there with me. We're gonna go down hunt with him. Then we're gonna bring him up here fishing and stuff like that, Wayne. So we just kind of do a trade there. So really excited about that. I haven't hunted birds for a few years, and then a buddy of mine, Trevor Carruthers, who Trev's got a rosy draw, and he's literally hunting. I think the season opens tomorrow for him, and might sneak up there for a couple days. But I'm away this weekend. I got some family stuff to take care of, and but maybe next week, maybe head up there for a couple days. Melanie's got a blacktail tag, so see if we can get her something. And then I'm taking my father-in-law and his stepson out on the end of October for a day or two, and maybe chase some bears and chase some blacktails. So nothing too much, but yeah.
Yeah, it's always, the fall always kind of flies by, and if you don't sit down and really plan out the things in advance, like a lot of times you end up looking in the rearview mirror going, wow, I should have got out more. And it's hard as you get, you're
Yeah.
keeping busy and there's lots of other pressures. But yeah, well, it sounds like you'll get out there anyway a little bit. The bird thing sounds really cool.
Yeah, it should be fun. I'm looking forward to it. Wayne's just a good friend, and I just appreciate him. He's donated to the society before. He donated a bird hunt, and actually he said you should come down when those guys are hunting that he donated that bird hunt for, and come down there during that time. But didn't work out quite as well as the timing there. So yeah, really looking forward to spending time with him. He's such a great guy. So
Well, no matter what happens, Kyle, you can look at your photos from the antelope that you just got, you, Melanie. So to
yeah, for sure.
reflect back on, I mean, you did fantastic. That was an awesome trip, and I listened to you talking about it with Greg there, and obviously the pictures of those animals are phenomenal.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was, and then we came home and I lost last Friday. It was like I was knee deep in antelope meat for literally the entire day. Got all processed, but we took the tenderloins and cooked them up and marinated them for a couple days. And I've never eaten the antelope actually, crazy as it is. And I used to like in southern Alberta, they were there and it was a draw then, but it wasn't. You didn't have to wait too long. You could get drawn, and I think I got archery antelope, but I never was really serious about it. I never killed one and never eaten it. So cooked up those tenderloins and oh my goodness, they were like zero gaminess. It was just beautiful. Now, in all fairness, my antelope was standing at 125 yards and, one shot down straight, cleaned them. And it was just the perfect harvest, right? But it came home and it was so decadent. And even Melanie could be a little finicky around game meat. And she was like, oh, no, no. She was all over it. So yeah, it was a big hit.
Well, and what a cool experience for her for her first animal, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, for sure. So,
Yeah.
hey, what are you hunting in Haida Gwaii? Are you going up there for deer and bear, or what are you doing?
Yeah, dear. I'm going with a fella that has been going up there for years. He's got it all sorted out, accommodations and vehicle and stuff. And yeah, for deer. And I did go up there last year, and surprisingly, I didn't actually get a deer last year. I was kind of holding out for something, and we didn't even see as many as we kind of thought. It's interesting because the limit up there, as we know, is pretty high for deer. But like anywhere else, it's pretty thick, it's pretty challenging terrain, and it's beautiful though. If no one is there, if you ever, I don't know, you've been to Haida Gwaii?
No, I've never been up there, Chris. No.
It's fantastic. Like I'd never been up there either, Kyle, and just to see that terrain and the beaches there, and I know famous for fishing and stuff, but the hunting is can be tough there. It's really thick, and it's obviously a lot of rain up there, and but beautiful in its own, for sure in its own way.
Well, I've seen stuff from I think Connor Gabbett and maybe Adam Foss and Joe Appel was just up there, and there's the abundance too. They're so rich in like sea life, right? Like seeing stuff like being harvested from like crabs or whatever. I don't even know what they were harvesting. It seems like a magical place up there.
Yeah, I mean, we went to some secluded beaches that were just fantastic. Like,
Uh,
you're wandering, there's nobody there. Like we're
right.
on these beaches in November, and as far as the eye can see, it's just like beautiful, rugged coastline. And like you say, there's eagles, and my friend was telling me one time he was driving down the road, and the road had flooded out, and there was actually salmon swimming down the road.
That is a magical place. I love fish swimming down the road. That's
Yeah, so
hilarious.
we'll see how that goes. I'm looking forward to getting back. And this year we are going to take some fishing rods and try some of the river fishing up there while we're up there too. And there's some downtime in that. So, yeah, be good to get back up there.
So, Chris, there was that landmark decision that was made. It was a bit controversial about a year ago around Haida Gwaii. So it was basically the redesignation of First Nations land and sort of their autonomy. Has there been any effect on fishing or wildlife or anything like that from what you can see?
So Well, I saw that decision, Kyle, and I'm wondering myself. Certainly last year when we went, there was no change. Like from what I gather, it was kind of the same status quo. And this year we'll be going back, and that decision happened kind of since that time. So I'll be curious when I go up there this time if there is any difference in terms of regulations or access issues or whatever. At this point, I haven't heard of any significant changes when it comes to fish and wildlife and the management of it that might impact our hunt up there. But it will be interesting to kind of see moving forward if that does have an impact on people going up to Haida Gwaii, BC residents to hunt there.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, well, keep us posted. I'm curious to see. And there's with reconciliation, everything that's going on. There's been a lot of changes, and it's just a lot of it's fear of like, what are we gonna lose? What are we gonna lose? And it'll be interesting to see, and especially post landmark decision, what it looks like. But these things take time to shake out too, right? So maybe that's not a direct reflection of where it's all going to settle out. But it's good to hear that you're still going up there and able to do your stuff. So it's encouraging.
Yeah, like I say, I'm looking forward to it, and I'll definitely keep my ear to the ground up there when I'm there, just to see if there are any, anything that's going to impact us as sportsmen or hunters to, going up there and accessing. Hopefully, hopefully there's a way for everybody to be able to utilize the landscape up there, right? I mean,
Yeah.
all of us, like,
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the one thing that we're most afraid of, right? When with around the reconciliation issue, and of course, First Nations, they want their traditional territory to be, it's some of that's very sacred to them, and they want it, it's a special place, and I get that. I don't want somebody coming in my house either, that shouldn't be there. But we're all, I think that's part of it is this fear of losing something and losing opportunity, right? I think and I kind of feel like the government maybe hasn't done as good a job in giving us that confidence moving forward. And I think it's more the fear of the unknown. And, it's one of those things, it's almost, you're more afraid of what could happen into actually it happening. And then you just sort it out. And everything's fine, but you just don't know. Right. So,
yeah, these are interesting times right now for sure.
yeah, yeah, for sure. So, and interesting enough, we got a provincial election, which is going to probably have some impact on all that stuff, right? Obviously, the leader of the day and the party of the day is it's going to impact all this stuff, and so yeah, elections less than 2 weeks out, and I actually met with one of the candidates this morning here locally, so I guess this is a good opportunity to sort of remind our listeners to get out. If you're a BC resident, get out and make sure you get your vote in, and make sure you have your say. And I guess for our listeners down south, there's a big election happening down there in the next 2 months here too. So
Yeah, for sure. And I guess there was a big leadership debate there was that last night. And I think you've said it before too, is like, let's get wildlife as part of some of these, these issues too. I mean, I know there's a lot of issues right now with housing and healthcare, all that stuff. But boy, it'd be nice to really see some, fish and wildlife issues and support for, conservation things like that, as becoming, important issues. Like it'd be nice to see that as, their position on those things. And, I know how I'm voting and I'm sure you do too, but we need a little bit of a reset in some ways for government funding on a lot of this stuff.
yeah, no, absolutely. And yeah, we're seeing stuff right now, and there's been a little bit of it spill out in the media here on some of the issues there. The narwhal, there's been a pretty good article. Vancouver Sun recently,
Yeah.
Castanet's covered it a bit, and
Yeah.
yeah, we have some pretty serious concerns about wildlife management, and hopefully that will change with post-election, but we'll see. It's interesting. I've reached out to John Rustad and David Eby and invited them both on the podcast. So we'll see. We'll see if either one of them is interested in talking about any of these issues in wildlife management. So yeah.
Yeah, I am waiting. I would hope that they do. I'd love to listen to them on Talk is Sheep and see what they have to say about it.
Yeah, I've reached out to John a few times, and granted, that was before sort of this massive, the United folded and, got wrapped into the Conservatives, and now, John's the guy, right? So he's been approachable, and I managed to talk to him with Joey BC, and he's pretty, he's certainly saying the right stuff around wildlife management. I know Kris has had discussions with David Eby before, and I think Kris got a pretty good vibe from him, but we're just not seeing it translate on the ground. So maybe with this new government it'll be better. I don't know, but or with the rejig government, and I'm not saying the NDP won't form government; they may very well, but we all know that it's going to be the landscape's going to look differently in this after this next election in one shape or form. A lot of people aren't running that were, and United are no longer the official opposition. It'll obviously more than likely be the Conservatives, so it's going to look differently for sure. So.
Yes, it will. And like I say, hopefully, wildlife can get on the ticket there a little bit this time, and we'll see some funding start coming back, with whatever government's in power. But I don't know. I'm not really I hate to say it, Kyle, I'm not holding my breath, but I'd like to be hopeful.
Yeah, well, me too. And that was the thing this morning when I met with that candidate is that wildlife's important, and he was saying he agreed with me, so that's good.
Yeah.
But I said it's important here to talk about what we're talking about today. But I said you're going to hear from me a lot after the election. That's where you're really going to hear about me because it's important that we look after wildlife. But I'm going to be bugging you, and the candidate that is the current MLA. I've tried to reach out and connect with her before the election around wildlife issues, and just didn't get a lot of opportunity, to meet. She was not too keen on talking about wildlife, I guess. So, but
Yeah.
yeah. So we'll see what Rustad and EB say if we can get either one of them on the podcast. So I said to the guy this morning, I'm like, hey, get your leader on here. Let's if you guys
Yeah.
you care about wildlife, let's prove it. So we'll see what happens. So, but Kris, what do we missed? What do we talked about? So we've talked politics. We haven't talked about religion. Maybe we should get into that.
Yeah.
Oh
No, we talk
goodness.
a bit about hunting and we talk about the expo and politics and I don't know. I don't know if we should leave it off with politics, but I guess maybe that's the case, eh?
Yeah, no, awesome. But no, for sure. No, I appreciate all you do, man, and super excited. And if anyone's interested in exhibiting, reach out to Kris. We'll put the contact info in the show notes here, but just go to the website. It's all over our website on how to get involved. And then the expo is in February. So we'd love to have you out to our show or expo. And yeah, it's going to be a great time for sure.
Yeah, good things coming up. Really excited about it. And by all means, reach out to me or Kyle or get on the website there if you're interested in being a vendor. We'd love to have you.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for all you do, and look forward to catching up on how the rest of your season goes. And maybe we'll do this a little close to the expo, and we can do one more push and then catch up on how your Haida Gwaii trip went and everything else. So,
That sounds good. Thanks for having me.
thank you.